Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is eyeshadow palette month and today we're ranking all of my colorful eyeshadow palettes. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today we're continuing my eyeshadow palette ranking series as part of eyeshadow palette month, where I'm posting daily videos. I have already ranked all of the other categories in my makeup collection with all of the eyeshadow palettes I've reviewed in the past. And today we have one left, which is the colorful palettes. Before we get into the video, I would like to introduce myself for people who might be new here. My name is Maaike. I've been a content creator for more than a decade. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and I really enjoy talking about eyeshadow palettes. So if that's something you're interested in, I hope you'd like to stick around. So in today's video, I have 53 eyeshadow palettes to rank for you. These are going to be ranked in rapid fire succession so that we can get through this video as quickly as I possibly can. I will leave any links in the description box down below so you can go to reviews, see swatches and looks that I've done with these, because I have tried every single pan of eyeshadow that you're about to see in this video today. That's how I like to go about my reviews. For any of the palettes that are still available, I will have some links in the description box as well so that you can purchase any of these in case you are interested. And yeah, if you do shop through those links, I could make a small commission. Just wanted to put that out there. So for the very bottom half of this ranking, I'm going to be having some palettes that, yeah, they're nice, but they weren't quite right for me, or they just don't really stand out between everything that I have going on. This ranking definitely features my brighter, more saturated, colorful palettes and sort of like pastel leading things. So anything that's like softer or that is like really full-on bright. And I was surprised I had this many, but oh well. We're kicking things off with this guy. This is one that I just feel I should declutter by now because I don't love the Beauté formula. I keep trying it because I want to love it. I want to be one of those people who loves this formula, but the Book of Magic I've always kept around because this was limited edition, first of all, and I love me a blue, green, purple color story, as you will see later in the video. And this is just, if palettes do this, I'm a sucker for it and I cannot let go of them. So that's why I've always kept this one around. But because I don't love the Beauté formula, this is ranked all the way in the bottom spot. Next up is a Zoeva palette. I have ranked quite a few of my Zoeva palettes a lot higher, but I think the IC is just not my favorite one. It is a little bit more jewel tone, so maybe it should have gone into a different video as well, but this is just not one that really stands out to me. However, in terms of like it having more colors than anything else, this is one of the very few Zoeva palettes I feel that does that. So the IC does have the lovely formula from Zoeva I love, but the color story isn't really anything special. And then finally in this section I have the Kiko. This is their holiday premiere Color Symphony Quad. And this is really pretty, very shiny eyeshadows, but is this really anything new to my collection? Not really. I just really wanted to give it a whirl because they were really putting this in as part of their marketing for their Christmas release last year. And I just kept eyeing this up and I wanted to know if it worked. And it worked. This is some decent Kiko eyeshadow for sure, but not a standout if you see everything else I have to rank here today. And from 50 to 41, I have a lot of my rearranged ColourPop eyeshadow palettes for you. I didn't want to rank these any higher because these color stories do not exist and I don't feel it's fair to sort of show you these and then go like, yeah, these are great colorful color stories, because they don't exist. I don't necessarily love ColourPop's color stories if you buy them off the shelf. So whenever the palettes are magnetic, I tend to reorganize it. I have videos up on the channel where I do that, so I will link some of those in the description box down below. The first one is my Dream Street. This is the High Tide, which you'll see the packaging of in a second, including the 3 teals that and then this like duochrome thing that are originally in here. The rest of this palette was incredibly warm tone neutral, and I have plenty of warm tone neutrals with a pop of teal, but this way I have an all teal palette. You couldn't make me any happier than that. Next up is my Mandalorian the Child. This one has a couple of extra greens in that I replaced the browns for because I didn't think it was green enough. The Cherry Crush, I don't even remember what all of these shades came from, but it was the Cherry Crush, the Main Squeeze, the Strawberry Shake, and one more. Like all of the like purpley, oh, the Ooh La La, and I think even the purple palette, the Please palette, whatever it was called. Really stunning color story, now that I've rearranged it. not the originals. Remember what I said about seeing the high tide in here somewhere? This is the original packaging. Inside it is the yellow palette. I've forgotten the name of it. But this is the yellow palette, and I also repressed a couple of other shadows to replace the glitter shadows that were originally in there. And then my Flutterby, this was an empty palette, and I made it a purple palette. This is what it now looks like. These are purples from so many different purple palettes by Colourpop. I feel they struggle doing good blue tone purple, so I tend to go with this instead. And finally, this palette is Colourpop, but the colors inside it are Juvia's Place. I took some shades from the Masquerade and the Magic. I had the really big giant pans, way too big, but I ended up turning it into this lovely, cooler toned, colorful color story. And I really love mine now. Also rearranged and therefore no longer the original color story. This is the Whale Song by Menagerie. And I was hoping at the time that this could be like my perfect blue-green color story, and it just wasn't. There is one that I like a lot better. So I ended up taking a couple of shades from my Violet ink, which I had at the time, and replaced some of the shades I didn't like. I especially added more shimmers to this. Then I have the Sugar Pill 10th Anniversary palette. This was gifted to me by a subscriber. Really sweet of her. And this is a really pretty, softer, colorful color story. Really stunning, but these colors aren't necessarily my vibe when I think of a colorful palette. And then she also gifted me this. This is by Glam Shop. I cannot read the name because I don't read Polish. And this palette is a little bit fragile. It keeps spilling eyeshadow everywhere. It's really nice, bright and colorful, but I didn't feel, especially that neon green was a bit out of place. This pink stained my lids. So as beautiful as the colors inside of it are, I just had some issues with the way this performed, and therefore it's not my favorite. And the final palette in the 50 to 41 category is the Sydney Grace, what's this called again? Radiant Reflection. And this was the most colorful out of the three palettes that I feel were in this collection. And if you saw my other ranking videos, you know that my intention is to pull these apart come my next declutter and to add some of these shades to my singles, because I think I would get more use out of it. Essentially, we get some rosy tones in here and then these brighter pops of blues and greens. This is a really stunning formula. I really enjoy Sydney Grace's eyeshadow formula. It's one of my favorites. It's just that within these palettes, I don't feel the color stories necessarily come together. Next, we're going from 40 to 31. So numbers 40 and 39 are going to be the Odin's Eye Christmas palettes from, well, they came back last year, but I got them the year before. And these were my favorite because I didn't love the formula. This was the first time I tried something by Odin's Eye that didn't quite work for me because the shimmers aren't just easy to pick up. But their color stories are so nice, and they're pretty bright and colorful as well. Odin's Eye color stories get me every time. Here's the Merry Christmas, and this is the Christmas Eve. So the Merry Christmas has some like nice bright greens and some reds with some pinks and oranges. Really lovely. And then the Christmas Eve is the cooler toned one with lots of blues and some like muted purples. This yellow as well. Really interesting. This is perhaps a little bit more neutral, but I feel in my brain these are colorful palettes, so that's why they go here, but they're ranked pretty low because of that formula issue I had. Next up is this one from Glam Shop. This is the Very Perry, and this is not ranked this low because I don't like the formula, but because the color story is a bit lacking. This is really blue tone. These are purpley, so they don't really go together, and I definitely need to supplement this with other purple palettes from my collection in order to get the use out of it that I would like to have. Then next up is this Victoria Beckham palette, and as much as I love the smoky eye bricks from the brand, this shade in Royal, it's just, the blues in here aren't that good, and I think it's to do with the fact that with blues you just have incredibly different pigments to play with, and even though these are quite blendable, I just felt that doing a full blue look with this wasn't all that good. I definitely need to pull other things in with this to make it work. Then a super old palette in my collection. This is the Dragon Child from Menagerie, but this is from back in the day when they were still called Makeup Monsters. This is a really wonderful, colorful palette, but I don't know how old this exactly is. It definitely has some really interesting purpley tones in here. That's what I keep it around for. I went back to this a while ago, and I still really like this. It's just because it's getting old, I don't want to recommend it too much because you can no longer get this. The palette I like to use together with the Very Perry is the Violetti from Glam Shop. This is their purple palette, and I definitely enjoy purple eyeshadow. It's just that with monochromatic palettes, I'm always a bit disappointed, you can say. I'm still going to be testing out the Melt Cosmetics Smoke Sessions too, because that's like the only recently released like all purple palette that I got my hands on that I would like to try. Here we get some like warmer tone purples and some cooler tone purples. And together with the Very Perry, it's very pretty, but again, by itself, I'm just missing something. Then we have the Festival palette. This is an old one from Juvia's Place. And this is one where it's like borderline neutrals, because even though these two shades are super bright, I have found that I can use some of these brighter things and make them look like neutrals on myself. It has a really nice pop of something bright blue for the lower lash line. I love this pop of pink as well. So definitely a more out there color story, which is why I keep it around. But this is definitely one where I'm like, yeah, it's definitely so out there that I don't think about this one all the time. And another older one in my collection is the Deuce from Juvia's Place. Really pretty as well, a little bit more pastel leaning, but I definitely have other pastel palettes in my collection I enjoy. This is perfect for the springtime though. I went back to it again this spring, and I really enjoyed the look I did with it. It is so, so beautiful indeed. It's definitely another older one in my collection. I don't think they still do this. A palette that's also discontinued, but this could still be for sale in some places that sell BH. This is the Passion in Paris, and this, as far as a purple palette goes, it gives me a lot. I just don't love these berry tones at the bottom. They really take away from the palette for me, and I almost decluttered it for that reason. And then I realized if I just ignore these four shades, I'm just liking it so much better, because then I get a cool tone purple palette that I do enjoy. But the palette itself as a whole, not really my favorite. Again, I have plenty of purples in my collection. All the purples seem to be together in this section of the ranking, it seems. But here we have the Futurism 6. This is the Lunar Lavender from Kaleidos. Is this a pretty palette? Yes, this is very pretty, but it's also very, very soft, and to some people this can be a little bit boring. I love this thing to pieces. I think it is a very solid, like softer lilac palette for sure, but I have come into a newer rendition of a lilac palette for me that is a little bit better. And finally, the palette that is actually on my eyes today. I didn't really know where to rank this. I actually forgot to take it out of from my makeup vanity before sitting down to film this video, because I kind of pulled it out of the stack last night as I was prepping for this video, because I wanted to do this look. And I really enjoy the Ace Beauté Oceanic. Again, blue, green, purples is just where it's at for me. This is missing the purples. But as far as a blue, green palette it goes, I think this is still very solid. I'm wearing these two shades and then these two. And then I think I popped this or this. No, this one. This one is in the inner corner. I was like, which one was it? So yeah, lovely palette. I still like the formula till this day. Again, this is an older one in my collection for sure. Next up, we're going to do numbers 30 to 21. And in the number 30 spot, this is the Slush from September Rose. Sadly, this brand actually has now closed down. I think there were a couple of these left on Monolith, but I'm not sure if they are still around. And I have always called this my favorite rainbow palette. I don't love rainbow palettes on myself because the primary colors just don't really go with my complexion. But because these are very light, muted, and more neon leaning, it really worked for my fair skin, and I have always appreciated it. So for doing something like sunset eyes, this is incredibly wonderful. So this is probably going to stick around in my collection for some time to come, because it is like one of the only like true rainbow color stories I still have in my collection. Then a really fun, bright pop of color in the 29 spot. This is the Unearthly Strawberry Shake? No. What's it called again? Strawberry Milkshake. Oh, I couldn't think of the name there for a second. But this is really, really nice. Pops of pink with green. Pinks and greens go together so nicely. If I'm in the mood for that, this is a really lovely palette. This is a little bit bright for me for the most part. I tend to go for these like grungier colorful shades a lot more than I do something this bright and vibrant, but I still really enjoy this. The Odin's Eye palette that is a little bit more colorful that I do like is the Norns palette. This is a little bit forgotten in my collection though. I still have the old version, so I don't know what the newer one with the square pen is like. So mine are like little dime-sized round pans for sure. And I like that this is colorful, but it definitely also has a very nice cooler undertone. So you could go very neutral with this. You can do a very colorful look with this. And it has some interesting shimmers. And I've always really enjoyed the packaging of this one too. Then the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop Pistachio. This is one of my go-to green palettes, but it is very vibrant and colorful and in your face. So if I want to go for that look, I have this one on hand for sure, but it's not one I reach for all the time for that reason. Then the Creepy Cute from Shroud Cosmetics. It's a beautiful pastel palette, but it's not all the pastels on the planet that you could possibly want, so that's why I'm knocking it down a little bit here. I do really enjoy a lot of these shades. Again, this is a quite, like a little bit of an older palette in my collection, but this has been one of my favorite pastel palettes for a long time. There's a reason why I don't have too many pastel palettes, because I have a couple, like 2 or 3, and those are the ones I like, and I don't feel I need all of them. Another Unearthly palette, I'm not sure if they still do it. I believe it was renamed to the Poison Apple, but mine is still called the Serendipity palette, and I bought it in the old packaging when they were still called Alien Cosmetics. And this is definitely like brighter, but it leans grungy, and you can do so many different things with this. You can pull in the really bright red to really have that punchy color, or you can just like stick to some of these like green tones and you're really happy with that as well. So this is a really lovely 9-pan color story that definitely goes together, and I still love and adore my older Unearthly palettes for sure. Not a big fan of the new formula. And another Oden's Eye palette that I do really enjoy the color story of, this is the Hella palette that they did in collaboration with none other than Angelica Nukvist. This is a lovely color story. I have just always said that I'm getting too much life and not enough death, because Hella is the goddess of life and death, and that's what this is supposed to represent. And like, there's too much life here. So I would have liked more of these like deeper grungy shades to go with those greens, but we got bright pinks, and like I said, pinks and greens can go together really well. So again, if I use this, I tend to go for that brighter pop of color, which I'm not always into, but this is definitely one of the good ones from Oden's Eye for me. If I have to go all purple, then this has been my go-to palette for years. It's the Flight Club from Menagerie. I did pull the other 3 shades from my Violent Ink into this, so 1/2 of my Violent Ink is in the Whale Song that I already showed you, and the other half is in here, because there were some warmer toned neutrals in this that I didn't actually enjoy all that much. So that's why I ended up going for this one indeed. And now that I have those cooler tone, more blue tone leaning purples in, I can bring it together a lot better. I love the Menagerie formula, but again, not all of their color stories were quite right for me. The Pastel Pop is one that I do enjoy. If I have to pick like a pastel palette that has all the colors of the rainbow pastels, then this would be my pick. That's why this is ranked a little bit higher than the Shroud, because it has the yellow in, and I do really enjoy these pastel shades. I just wish that instead of a white and a black, we got more shimmers, because this is really blue heavy. So it goes with these shades and the green and this, but these like orangey, peachy, yellow, pinky shades have nothing to go with when it comes to the shimmer, which I think is a bit of a shame. And finally, so palette number 21 is going to be this guy. This is the Blitz Astral Quad in Nocturnal Nirvana by Pat McGrath. This was my first ever Pat McGrath palette, and I didn't fall in love with the brand because of this, because this was just 4 of the special shades, and I really had to work hard to make them work. But as far as like something fun, bright, and colorful goes, I think these are really special and definitely really nice shadows to work with. However, it's not top 20 material, because it's just not, like, I need to pull in other mattes to make this work and to have it not crease on me. Next up, we're going from numbers 20 to 11. So number 20 is going to be this Nomad palette. This is the Land of Fire and Ice, the Iceland palette. And this may not seem very colorful at first, but I feel this is colorful enough for it to go here. We have some pastel shades in here. We get quite a lot of renditions of like blue tones in here, some murky greenish gray tones, and then these really nice warm, spicy, orangey reds. Really pretty. It looks like the inside of a volcano. And that's definitely what I feel this palette represents. I love this if I want to go for softer, colorful looks, and that's definitely something I think that can also be a colorful look. It doesn't always have to be like primary colors, like in your face, colorful shades for something to be colorful. Case in point, the look I'm wearing today. A long-standing favorite has always been the Nabla Soul Blooming. I have always loved this for the springtime, and I still do till this day. I think this is such a good palette, but this is also getting a little bit older in my collection. This is partly neutral as well, because these peachy tones could be very neutral, but in my brain, they are like soft, colorful shades. We get some periwinkles in here, and then of course those peach tones. So I still love mine. I'm not going to get rid of mine anytime soon, but still definitely top 20 material, and I do enjoy the color story still till this day. We have Aether Beauty. Apparently Aether Beauty is back. That's what I've heard. This is the Moonlight Crystal palette, and this is really, really pretty. This is where we're getting into like favorites territory with these blues, greens, and purples. This is really stunning. It has some really interesting shades in as well. I especially like this. It's like a taupe, but it has like blue and green. It's interesting. It doesn't have a ton of mattes, which I enjoy. I like the packaging of this. It's quite sleek and slim and easy to carry around, and it has some beautiful shades in too. The Sweet Shop Bubblegum. This is the blue tone version of the green tone I've already shown you, and this is like really vibrant, fun, bright blues, which as far as the blue tone palette goes, I probably would want this. It definitely has enough depth here. I feel it's a little less, well, I wouldn't call it saturated, but like a little less in your face than the green one is. I definitely feel there is something more muted about these two shades, but everything else is still very bright and fun, and something I like playing around with from time to time. I went back to it in July. So if you want to see a look with this, then go back to some of my July videos. Here is the Nomad Monteverdi Cloud Forest palette, and I just love that you can see the animals when they're in the box, and that's why I keep the box for a lot of my Nomad palettes, because the box always adds to the experience. Here is what the actual palette looks like, and this is a really, really fun, colorful color story for sure. I had not expected to love this as much as I did. I actually ended up winning this in a giveaway thanks to one of my subscribers actually nominating me for one of their giveaways, and then I was able to pick one out, and I chose this one. And the reason why I like this so much is because it has a lot of greens, and green looks really good on me, and that's what I love. It has some pops of neon, it has a multi-chrome in, it just has a lot to offer for a colorful palette, whereas usually I think with colorful palettes, because so many of them are monochromatic, I definitely think that in my brain, therefore I feel they're very limiting, but this one gives me options, which I enjoy. Number 15 then, Glam Shop. This is their green palette or one of the green palettes they used to do, because Glam Shop palettes are always limited edition, which makes me so sad. But this is a really nice, a little murkier green palette perhaps, but it definitely has some brightness as well. It has this almost like yellow, like limey green kind of thing, which really adds to the palette. It just really makes it so punchy and bright and fun to play with. I definitely like this better than I do the pistachio, because it has those grungier, more murky undertones, which I enjoy. Speaking of something slightly more grungy, here is Kaleidos. This is their Glowing Iris. And while this is really, really bright and a little bit more periwinkle leaning, I definitely feel because of this shimmer and also this deeper tone, we really get some interesting things here, even though it's only a 4-pan. And this is one of my favorite bright things that Kaleidos has definitely done. But we also have some fun things from Gloss Gods for sure. This one was discontinued. It's the Dancing in the Sky. This is one of their effects palettes. They do these all shimmer palettes, which they sort of recommend for more creative uses. And this is the all green palette, and I just think this is so, so wonderful and lovely. You get every rendition of a green shimmer you could ever think of, including some duochromes, some flaky things, and some multi-chrome. So it is very versatile. You can use these by themselves for my review, that's what I did, but I would definitely in the future pair this with neutrals and really make those shimmers pop. Then we have the Warlock palette from Fantasy Cosmetica, and this is one where it's like, that's very out there, but that's mainly because of these two greens that makes it really bright and punchy. I thought that these 4 shades were punchy, that's what I was trying to say. These 4 shades make it a little bit more neutral if you pair those together, but it does have blues and greens and reds, and this is just such a yummy one. Again, a little bit more on the murky side of things, which I do enjoy, but it does have that bright pop of something if you so wish to. Finally, number 11 is the Lavish from ColourPop. There were so many people who did not like this eyeshadow palette, but I think if you have light skin and it's fair and it's cool toned, you're gonna love this palette. This is the Periwinkle palette I wanted the Glam Shop to be. All these undertones go together. It has this like grayish blue undertone, and yet it's still purple. So for me, this is perfection. It's colorful, but not too bright. It has those gray tones. It has some really interesting duochrome and like sparkly shades in. I think this was excellent, and I had no issues with the quality with this one. Which brings me to the top 10. We are in for the home stretch. This is the Color of Rain by Gloss Gods. The Dancing in Disguise, the green toned one. This is the blue toned one. I think this one may still be available. This does have one matte black, which allows you to transform all of these shades. Most of them have blue or purplish undertones, but this is the only peach, and this way it's just a really nice cool tone shimmering vibe. And because most of these are duochromes, if you pair them with the black, they will really change their color, because adding a duochrome over a black base is really going to change the appearance. So this just gives me more options than the Dancing in the Sky, and that's why it's ranked in the top 10. Blend Bunny, the Lure palette. I definitely think this is a really nice Blend Bunny palette. I definitely felt that this was nice. We get, of course, the gradient that Blend Bunny is known for doing, and we get a full row of shimmers. I especially like this shimmer here in the top. That's really something special and out there, and I really adore the Blend Bunny formula. That's why this is ranked so high. Color story wise, I feel the gap between these two is far too big. So for me, I would have liked something, because this is quite murky and then this is super bright. So blending these together just doesn't look very good. And also with the greens, I feel that's the case as well. The other shades are fine. So I definitely think that in terms of getting a really good like blend, which is what that's why the name is there, I don't feel that that is 100% successful. And I wish that this shimmer wasn't so warm toned, because these pinks are actually quite cool toned, and you get a very warm toned, almost orange leaning pink shimmer with it. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Is it a beautiful palette though? For sure. Then we have Cosmic Brushes. This is the Serenity palette. This was my first ever Cosmic Brushes palette. This is stunning. It's blues, greens, and purples. My favorite colorful color story on the planet. This neon orange pulls a little bit more neutral heavy, and my main complaint about this is that it didn't have enough shimmer in. Luckily, they've changed that now. Their newer palettes definitely have more shimmers in than this one did. Number 7 is this guy from e.l.f. This is the Celestial Winter, and it's such a beautiful pastel-leaning palette. This was limited edition, though, so I'm not sure if they still do it. But I still think this is really, really good. It's one of my favorite drugstore palettes as well. You get those blues, you get those purples. Here, this guy, duochrome, which duochrome's from e.l.f. Who doesn't want that? And then over here, we have those like warmer tone neutrals to round out the look. And the bright blue you get in here is actually good as well. So e.l.f. did a really good job with this one. Number 6 is the Petit Four Lavande from Viseart. So again, slightly more lavender-ish, and this is really all I need. Like, lavender doesn't have to be complicated, you guys. This is all I need in terms of a lavender palette. If I end up adding like a slightly deeper purple to deepen things up with, that I can use as liner, I have such a stunning look. Don't love doing that. Like I said, I want my palettes to be a one-stop shop. This isn't quite, but because it is a lovely formula by Viseart that I love and adore, this does get to go into the top 10. Then we're getting to the top 5. This may come as a bit of a surprise to some people, because the Ensley Rain formula wasn't exactly my 100% favorite, but as far as a colorful color story goes, the Lands of Enchantment, this is good. Like, color story wise, this is so, so good. No shade here goes unused. You can use it as columns if you want a mix of light and dark, and it works really, really well. I also love that for every matte, we have a shimmer in here pretty much. So the split is here pretty much 50-50, which I also adore. And this worked a little bit better for me in terms of formula than the Cold Moon did, because this has none of the weird flaky things that are difficult to pick up with a brush. So this I thought was very successful, and just going by the color story, I definitely think it is beautiful, and it is one of my favorites in my collection just for the color story alone. Number 4, the Menagerie Feral. I never know how to say this word. Apparently you can say it both ways depending on what part of England or the US you're from. So I'm going to stick to Feral because that's how I've always heard it pronounced. But this is a beautiful, colorful color story. I reach for this all the time. If I think I want to wear a colorful color story with really nice, bright, punchy shades, I'm trying to talk too fast because my camera battery is running low. But this is just so, so lovely. The pinks go really well with a lot of the things. You can really mix and match it with the greens, but the turquoise is really nice. The neutrals with the pop of turquoise or the purple is really nice. These two mix together perfectly to make an orange if you so wish. So even though you don't get a full rainbow color story, you can definitely manipulate it and use it a bit like a painter's palette to get the look you want. And everything goes together so perfectly. This is still, till this day, one of my favorite colorful palettes. Another great colorful color story that I reach for every summer is this guy from Kaleidos. This is the Futurism 6. 6? No, 5. It's just like embossed on here, so I couldn't really see it. The Electro Turquoise, that's what I'm talking about. Beautiful packaging again, and this is one of the Kaleidos ones that I have kept around and that I've not messed with because this is just perfection. It is essentially neutrals with a pop of teal for me. Even though you get that bright orange, I just use it in the crease and ignore that it's not a brown. That's the way I use it. Of course, you do get the brown to tone things down, but you can do a full-on teal look with this if you so wish. Like I said, for the summertime, I love this thing to pieces. And that's why it's number 3 in the ranking today. But the top 2 is definitely based on some more recent things I've tried. The Wizard from Fantasy Cosmetica, I think, is a beautiful purple palette with a pop of yellow in this case. So we have purples, we have some like midnight indigo purple, so more blue leaning I feel, and then the yellows in there. This is so, so wonderful. You get 4 shimmers in here. This one is definitely more of like a multi-chrome, almost holographic kind of moment. It definitely has some difference to the sparkle there. We get enough light shades, you can really nice blend these together, mix and match. It's a 9 pan that can just do so much, and yet it's still really nice, bright, fun, and poppy. Which brings me to the number 1 spot in this video today, and it's this guy, the Cosmic Brushes Winter Wonderland. Because is there a more perfect color story than this? Like if I think blue, green, purple eyeshadow, this is what comes to mind. If I go bright, this is what I want. There's a multi-chrome here, there's a multi-chrome here, and this is just really, really pretty. I didn't need the multi-chromes per se, though those don't make the palette, but this definitely has more shimmers in than the Serenity that I just showed you, and I think one of the brands to watch for more colorful eyeshadow is definitely Cosmic Brushes, but they've just come out with 2 neutral palettes, and those I will be testing out for you very, very soon. So those were all of the palettes I wanted to rank for you in today's video. Thumbs it up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more by me. I'm currently in the midst of doing eyeshadow palette month, and I'm posting daily videos, so I have a lot of content coming your way, but I normally post 4 videos a week. So if you'd like to stay tuned for more, and then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye.